There was a period back in 2018 where I legitimately believed that I was a sociopath. Um, and a lot of it was based on cobbled together information throughout the span of like 13 years of just random events where I wasn't showing emotion or where I did something kind of bad. But what I regretted to understand at the time was that just because you have a few moments of being a bit robotic or not knowing all of the emotions where they are, where they're supposed to be placed, like, just because you have those moments does not necessarily mean that you are a sociopath. Like, I was looking at all this information about how, well, some sociopaths can experience empathy and stuff, and I was like, oh boy, there it is. There's the reason. There's the reason I'm a sociopath. See, they can experience some empathy. Like, I was just trying to gather all of this information, and looking back on it, it just seems really, really strange. Like, I had made it part of my identity to be a monster, and I think part of where it came from was everyone around me had reinforced that narrative. And so as a result of hearing it so many times, I was like, yeah, well, maybe it's true. Maybe I'm going to base my life around that. But before that point, I had, loose experiences where I thought, well, maybe I am one, because, throughout my life, there have been large periods where I was extremely dishonest, where, I put on masks just to pretend to be other people, to get the support and approval of other people, and there were times when I legitimately wanted to do bad things, but I tend to feel bad afterwards. Like, upon reflection, I would almost always feel bad. Like, I don't think a sociopath is the type of person who literally cries when they see footage of a bombing, like, I don't think they're the type of person who would literally cry when they see footage of, a tiger, being manhandled in a cage on Facebook. I give that specific example because I remember in 2014 I saw this like UNICEF ad. I don't remember what it was, but it was like 50 million tigers a year are treated terribly. And then it had like, all this like horrifying looking footage of these big cats, and it made me so sad that I cried a lot. And there was a separate time in 2017, I believe. It was either 2016 or... Wait, no, because I knew Magos at that time, so it was 2017, because I remember DMing him about it. And I told him, oh god, I just cried because I read about how they eat dogs in China. Because there was this report that it was talking about how a lot of dogs are tortured before they're killed because of some kind of stupid gook tradition. And so I was reading about that and I just got so sad. Like, I was just right there sitting in the chair, and my eyes, there were tears in my eyes. I'm pretty sure my mom was there as well. And so I don't think a sociopath can react like that. I don't think a sociopath can have a long history of being sensitive when it came to things like that. And so I sort of convinced myself, as I tend to, that I was a certain person that I wasn't. I'm very good at this, by the way. I'm very good at reinforcing a narrative about myself that isn't true, and then using that to, act out a certain character around other people. And I think because I'm admitting that on camera, that I've done that many times, it kind of helps me grow in the sense that I'm just laying all the truth out there. Because there was truth in certain things that I was saying. Like, I wouldn't have been able to come up with that narrative if there wasn't some kind of coherent element to it. it was just that I was blowing the bits of truth that were in that story so out of proportion and then applying them to the entirety of my experience. When really, if you're going to look at someone's personal psychology, you have to take a holistic approach. You have to look at the entire body of experience, not just a few situations. But I wanted to, because I wanted to be part of this narrative identity of, the crazy person that's completely detached from other people. If you watch my video, what is it called? It's called like a not-so-surrealist manifesto about heartbreak and moving on. The point of that video is that I talk all of this stuff in the video about how I'm heartless and I can't feel anything and, all this kinds of nonsense. But the point, if you watch the video to the end, I had a few people who didn't watch the video to the end back when it came out, and they took it completely out of context. But if you watch it to the end, the ending is very important, because it shows that no, those claims aren't true. Like, I literally start crying in one scene of that video, and you see footage of it. When the "Where Is My Mind" song is playing, and then at the very end, and I don't want to spoil this because I like the very last part of the video a lot, but there's very severe implications for my mental state in the way that it was shot and the content of the shots themselves. And you can see that clearly what had happened had affected me in some way. If I truly was this heartless creature that just didn't care, I wouldn't have been that upset. It wouldn't have hurt so much. And that was the point of that video. The point was the internal contradiction that I was viewing as I was making it. That's why when I say I manipulated someone into dating me in that video, it's not true. If you watch to the end of the video, it's very clear that it isn't true. But the point is that it is exaggerated, is that I was trying to convince myself of this monstrous narrative about myself, in order to feed into this detached version of myself that I could feel more comfortable being, because I was afraid. I was afraid of the emotions that I was experiencing, so I would have rather have been this horrible person instead of being the person who has to deal with the fact that, I have too much empathy a lot of the time. I have too much sensitivity a lot of the time. And so I feel like that video, as well as a few other ones I did at the time, were emblematic of this mind state that I was in, where I was trying to, on the one hand, convince myself of this idea, of this monstrous individual, and then on the other hand, I was actively fighting against it, saying, no, that's not true. And when you're in such a conflicted state like that, when you're in so much pain, and you're hearing so many different stories about you from other people who you used to know, claiming that they know who you are, eventually after those social relations have demonized you so much, you're just going to believe what those people said. And that's one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent for rehabilitative prisons, because if you put someone in a prison system where everyone tells them they're a terrible person who deserves to rot in prison, most likely when they come out, they're going to do crimes again, because now their identity has been shaped by the fact that they're a horrible prisoner. And Norway has much lower recidivity rates because they treat their prisoners with love and respect, and they tell them they're human beings who can change and can improve. Even if they've done terrible things, they use a psychological rehabilitative approach. And oftentimes those people come out better people than they were before, safer members of their community. The United States mindset is justice. And the problem with that is that for the person who actually committed the bad act, you're not looking at it from the standpoint of they did it because of these experiences in their life, and ultimately the psychology behind them is the reason they're acting that way. You're looking at it from the standpoint of they have done something to me or someone who I care about, and I want them to rot in hell because of that. It's a very vengeful mindset, but that's how the American populace has been shaped. And so, I had a point that I was getting to with that. Oh, yeah. So, at this time, I was thinking about, I am this person because the people around me say I am that person. People don't realize, if you look into psychology, the social influence of your peers has a massive effect on the way that you view yourself. And so, I was in this period where I had all of these different ideas of, I don't know who I am, combined with the fact that, I was 16 at the time, earlier into being 16. I had just had my birthday and all that stuff. At the worst of it, it was in fall. My birthday is in spring, but, I had those thoughts in the summer as well. And so, it was all coming around this time at a very, very important stage in development of one's life. Where you're very confused. And I know, as I'm turning 17 on the 29th, that the way that you perceive things is going to be a lot different, even like 5 months after you've seen things on your 16th birthday or after your 16th birthday. Like, the rate of progression is much, much quicker when you're this age, in my experience at least. And so, these words, these things that I was saying about myself, none of it was applicable to any time, because I was just trying to come up with an answer to certain past behaviors that weren't really that prevalent. They weren't around that much, but I was nonetheless trying to figure out why they were there, and trying to justify why it was that people would view me in this horrendous way, and trying to put myself in a mindset where I felt numb and detached from the world around me so I wouldn't be hurt by it. That was the motivation that was encompassing my actions and how I viewed myself at the time. And I think when you lay out all of it like that, it does make sense. The thing is, though, is that because of the way that I presented myself in videos back then, I have some of them. I think I only privated one of them, but there were a few that were, a little bit egregious in the way that I described things, because that was how I viewed myself at the time. I don't know. I think it's just a weird blip. It's a weird blip on the Infinite Outlaw narrative, that there was a time in which this was the way Infinite Outlaw was presented, this horrible person who's gonna liken themselves to shonen villains. Ugh, God. Ugh. What a terrible fate. What an absolutely terrible time. But I did have certain key instances from my past that I tried to use to contextualize my thought process at the time. Was, there was when I was little, I did take a lot of things from other people, but that was more out of compulsion and not knowing how to control behavior, because I'm in a fucking young age, and I wasn't really told how to act or how to care about others to any significant degree. And so, of course, when you're little and you have access to take things, and you don't know right from wrong, you just know I've been yelled at, and now, I'm sad. It's kind of difficult to understand the moral implications of what it is that you're doing. Now, a lot of the examples I gave was from when I was very little, where I don't even act that way anymore. The feelings that I related to when I was little, when I was doing these antisocial behaviors, are not even feelings that I feel anymore. And even back then I felt bad. I just didn't feel as bad as I thought I should in my mind. And so, I don't know, it was very strange. It's very, very strange that you get to a point where you're so depressed and so confused about who it is that you are that you literally identify with a sociopath. But I don't know, I think when you experience so much pain, the desire for detachment can become something that you want to do. And my only regret from that time was that I started acting out the types of feelings that I had claimed to have. Because, of course, when you identify with certain traits, you're going to act out those traits. And eventually, after enough damage was done, I realized what it was that I was doing, and I realized that I didn't like it. There's one specific instance where I was in a call with a friend of mine, and I was talking about something I had said to someone else that had greatly damaged them, greatly upset them. And I told him. I told him what it was, and I told him why I cared about what it was that I said. And eventually, after describing enough of the details, I just started crying. Right there in that call, I just started crying. And that was the moment where I realized what I was talking about all this time, what I was saying that I was, just wasn't true. It didn't apply, because I wouldn't have been able to react like that out of nowhere if that was somehow true. And my closer friends who have talked to me when I was in states like that and have seen me, like actually seen me react that way, they know what's up. They know where I'm coming from. But I don't know, I regret those videos. I regret those videos of me saying those things about myself, because well, yeah, I have done some pretty messed up things. I think by and large I've mostly done positive things, and I've mostly cared throughout time. There is something to be said about feeling robotic at times and not always having the interpersonal energy that I would require, but it's never on the level of wanting to be malicious or, actively not feeling anything for other people. If I do something wrong, afterwards, after I contextualize what it was that I was doing, I always feel bad. And so I think one of the biggest regrets that I ever have was that period of time where I believed those things about myself to be true. And I thought what I was doing was just the course of nature. I would do anything to take back some of the things that I said and did at that time. But hey, it's we're doing like 50% better now, so that's good. And I don't know. Sometimes I sit there and I think about that period. I think about how it affected other people, and I just get really sad. I don't know what this video is about. Like, the video I released yesterday was exactly like this, where I just was rambling about a subject without really having a subject. It seems as if my videos have been reaching this type of, what should I say, paradigm? They've been becoming this brand of content much more lately, where I've just been unhingedly, is that a word? I don't even know. I've just been saying lots of stuff without necessarily a coherent topic to connect the entire video. I think that's a result of me not having a lot of coherent topics as of late. I've just talked. So maybe you enjoy videos like this. I don't know. But I never run out of things to say, or I just repeat the old things in a different way. I always end up saying more stuff, even when I don't have one particular topic to talk about. I guess that's good.